Hello and welcome to the first GRC podcast. I'm your host, Rohan Jain, and alongside me I have Jack Ullman and Nick Yadav. And today we're going to be discussing social investing. And before we get started, I want you guys to just briefly introduce yourselves, and then I'll start asking some questions.
Okay, yeah, so I'm Jack. I'm a first year studying journalism as well as business institutions and political science. I'm in Delta Sigma Pi, which is a business fraternity, and I have a passion for all things business and investing.
I'm Nick Yadav. I'm a freshman at Northwestern. I'm in computer science at McCormick along with econ minor, and I'm pursuing the Kellogg certificate in financial economics. And yeah, I'm interested in investing as well.
Great. So firstly, I just want to ask, how did you guys get interested in investing? What propelled you to start investing? And we'll go from there.
So for me, the first couple summers I started working in high school, all the money I made I had sitting in a savings account, and watching, the minuscule interest rates of the bank grow my money by tiny rates every year was rather disheartening. So eventually I came to the conclusion that, through investing, I could make my money work for me, and have a passive source of income. So I talked with my dad, who works in institutional investment, and he got me started with a Schwab account, and I started investing my money.
For me, it was pretty similar. I got very pissed off with the Bank of America interest rates and stuff like that. So I was trying to find a way to grow up my money more. Plus, a lot of my friends' parents and a lot my parents also are involved in the finance sector, kind of. So one of my friends is into hedge funds and stuff like that. So seeing how people can make their money grow really interested me, and so to put my own money into I also have a Schwab account, so that's how I got into it.
Great. And what are some things that so it seems like both of you have been investing for a decent amount of time now. What are some things you've sort of learned or picked up on through making mistakes or through putting your money in certain companies? What are some things you've sort of learned about investing?
I think patience is really important. I think a lot of kids our age try to invest on a really short timeline. And while that works in the short term sometimes, I think that, on a macro scale, that's not really a sustainable strategy. So kind of learning these tips from my dad, I try to make sure that I'm patient with my money, try to keep longer year outlooks, making sure I'm not trying to flip money. And honestly, I don't put any money in the market I'm not ready to lose. People should not be going around throwing money into stocks if they're not ready for the risks associated with those things. So kind of along the way through investing, I've learned a lot of those lessons. And then also just knowing how to pick stocks better, doing some really important due diligence, I think, is critical. Not just kind of following some random person's advice on the internet is always advisable. So that's some of the stuff I've learned.
Yeah, for me, I only got into investing this past summer, in July. So I'm still learning as I go. But I would say just doing your due diligence on companies, understanding not just the financials, but what the company values is really important when you're looking into a company. And the more I do, I learned you have to go through the short losses, because in the end you're in this for the long term investing. I'm not really in this for day trading or anything like that. So I think you just have to understand that companies' stock prices will fall. You just have to hold through, and you can't be too worried about this a day to day price drop.
Yeah, Nick mentioned doing your due diligence on companies and caring about the values of the companies. So this podcast was sort of meant to talk about the idea of social investing and how much you consider the social aspect of a company when putting your money into it. So I just wanted to throw out the question and see how much both of you guys consider the intricacies of the company and whether they have a social mission before investing, or do you just consider investing based on the statistics? Do you even look into that part of the company, or what are your thoughts about that?
So for me, I think, sustainability due diligence is really critical. My dad does a lot of work with ESG investing, which kind of takes into account environmental, social, and governance factors. And I think that kind of analysis, looking at it through that lens, is super critical. I think you can learn a lot about a company from looking at its social impact, what it's doing to forward, various justice movements, what it's doing to be sustainable towards the environment. Those kind of things, I think, are a great indicator of long-term growth. And when you're looking for a stock that has a lot of value, I think those factors, obviously you want to look at, the financials and whatever else, but it's a super critical lens. And I think it's becoming way more popular now to be looking at things with that perspective. So I would say for me personally, it's very important. And I think kind of in the coming years, for all people in the investing world, it will become increasingly crucial.
For me, it's definitely not the first thing I look into. I look into more like the financials and stuff before that. But I think it's a very important thing to consider when investing in a stock or a company, because no company that's bad in the black eye in terms of like social issues or like environmental issues would succeed, because a lot of people in this day and age really care about those kind of aspects. So if a company is not like well seen in the public eye, or they're making mistakes in terms of social or environmental like issues, like take the BP oil spill or something like that, obviously many people will be offended by that or not hold that company highly anymore. So stuff like that is very important in terms of investing, because even if it's not the most important to you, it's important to a lot of other people. So you should really take that in account when you're investing in a company.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that just I also try to look for kind of the diversity aspect of different firms and companies I'm investing in. I think it's really important. I personally, if I'm looking at a company and I see that, their executive board is entirely comprised of, older white men, I think that that's a bit of a turnoff. I think that shows the company's, staying a little bit old fashioned. I like to see companies really moving forward as the times are changing, getting different voices, whether it be from a racial perspective or a gender perspective. I think that's really important, kind of creating a really strong leadership foundation.
Yeah. I think one of you mentioned about like how moving forward you feel like things are going to change, and how you feel like people are more so looking into the social aspect of companies based on before they weren't doing so as much. Why do you think, like, especially this generation of investors, a lot more young people are starting to invest? Why do you think that's mostly the reason why people are looking into the social impact of companies, or do you think there's other influences because of that?
Well, I think there's two sides to it. I think for one, when people, they make their money, they have it, they're ready to invest it, they want to see that money go to places that are going to do good things with it, right? That's just natural. So I think that urge is hugely driving the kind of movement more towards these factors. But also at the same time, it's been, shown through a lot of analyses that looking at these factors can help predict the long-term value of a stock. And I think that is what's really driving the progress forward. I think people will always be receptive to being able to make the most out of their money in the market. And I think that's why it's becoming so popular, is because more and more research is showing that that's a hugely important factor in kind of making these decisions.
I agree with a lot with what Jack said, but in terms of your actual question, I don't think it's necessarily a factor of a lot of more young people coming into the market. I feel like a lot of that is like a money grab in terms of like the Wall Street bets and stuff like that. I don't think that was more of like a social issue. But I feel like just in general, like recently, in the last couple of years, a lot more has been put into like social issues and environmental issues, not just with young people, but just people of all ages. People like understand this is a bigger issue going forward. So I think now people are more into like socially and environmentally like cautious companies than before. I don't know necessarily think it's because young people are investing. I think just people of all ages are understanding that it's more important going forward.
Great. I think, is there anything else you guys want to add moving forward? Like, do you see yourself sort of investing in more socially conscious companies? How do you see like the market moving forward? Like, how do you see people investing in the future, like 10 years from now, 20 years from now? Do you feel like it's going to get even, like people are going to invest even more so in socially driven companies?
I'd probably be inclined to say that, but I also just think on a general level, just the social impact and the sustainability of a company is one of many metrics worth looking at when you're investing. And in my opinion, it's a very important one. But regardless, my kind of advice would be to anyone looking to get into investing, really trying to do your homework, make sure that you are aware of all of these different factors, whether it be the financials or the social impact, or, really you want to be able to understand the companies you're investing in from a holistic perspective. I would just say to any young people out there that have all their money sitting in a savings account, get started. Even invest in something safe like a conservative mutual fund or an ETF. It's really a waste to put all of your money in a savings account and just watching it grow at tiny rates. I think that's kind of a waste. So, go out there, learn a lot from people who are in the industry and stuff, and see what you can do. I think it's a lot of fun, and I think that it's a really productive way to not necessarily make all your money just from your salary.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Jack just said. Like, if you put your money into an S&P fund or something like that, your money will grow by like 10% year over year. Is I would think what the number is versus like you getting like 0.5% from your savings account. I think just putting your money in the market at all, whether like as little or as much as you have, I think it's a smart idea. Just going forward.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you guys both for your time. It was very much appreciated, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for having us, Rohan.
Thank you, Ron.